You know, when you think about psychological theories, you probably imagine them being developed in a comfortable office or a university lab. But the one we're diving into today, well, it was forged in one of the darkest places imaginable, a concentration camp. We're going to unpack Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, a truly powerful way to find meaning, not just in the face of suffering, but in the day-to-day anxieties of our own modern world.
So, let's start with this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. Viktor Frankl saw this as the absolute cornerstone of his entire philosophy. The single idea that having a why gives you the strength to endure almost any how, that's the very heart of everything we're about to explore.
To really get logotherapy, we can't start in a sterile classroom. We have to go right here. Auschwitz, 1942. It was in this crucible of unimaginable suffering that Dr. Frankl, having lost everything, his family, his freedom, his life's work, started to notice something extraordinary about the human spirit.
Frankl found himself in what he would later call the ultimate human laboratory. He was no longer Dr. Frankl. He was prisoner 119104. And yet he wasn't just trying to survive. His mind was always working, observing, analyzing the raw essence of human existence under the most extreme pressure you can possibly imagine.
And this is what he realized. In a place designed to crush every last bit of freedom, he saw that there was one final liberty that could never be taken away. He noticed that the survivors, well, they weren't always the biggest or the strongest physically. They were the ones who held on to an inner purpose, the ones who actively chose how they would respond to their suffering.
And that observation became the bedrock of his entire life's work. He called it the will to meaning. Now, you've probably heard of Freud's will to pleasure or Adler's will to power. Frankl said, no, you've got it wrong. He argued that our most fundamental primary drive as human beings is to find and pursue a purpose. It's like a spiritual compass guiding us even in total darkness.
Okay, that's a great idea, but how do you actually find this meaning, especially when it feels like all hope is lost? Well, Frankl was incredibly practical about this. He didn't see it as some vague philosophical quest. For him, it was an actionable choice, and he laid out 3 very concrete paths that are available to absolutely anyone in any situation.
So he identified these 3 pillars. First, by creating something or doing a meaningful deed, your work. Second, by experiencing goodness or beauty, or by connecting deeply with another person, love. And third, and this is the most profound one, by finding meaning in the way we choose to face suffering that we simply cannot change.
For Frankl himself, that first path was literally his lifeline. His entire manuscript, his life's work, was torn from his hands and destroyed the moment he arrived at the camp. But what did he do? In the freezing cold, on the brink of starvation, he spent his imprisonment mentally rewriting it on scraps of paper in his mind. That future task gave his present suffering a purpose. It was the why that helped him survive the how. The second path he found was love. He describes these grueling marches in the snow in moments of absolute despair where he would just conjure up the image of his wife. This mental conversation, this spiritual connection, it became a private sanctuary, a source of inner strength that his captors could never, ever touch.
And that brings us to the third path, which might just be his most enduring lesson for all of us. When you're faced with unavoidable suffering, an illness you can't cure, a loss you can't reverse, meaning isn't found in trying to change the situation. It's found in changing yourself. It's about how you bear your cross. It's about turning a personal tragedy into a uniquely human achievement.
So after he was liberated, Frankl didn't just write a book about his experience. He did something remarkable. He translated these raw, hard-won survival insights into a formal school of psychotherapy. He showed how the lessons he learned in the camps could be a powerful antidote to the anxieties of our seemingly comfortable modern lives.
See, Frankl identified a core problem of our society, and he gave it a name, the existential vacuum. In an age where we have the freedom and the means to live, so many people feel they have no meaning to live for. It's that chronic boredom, that feeling of inner emptiness, that Sunday night dread you get even when, on paper, everything in your life is fine.
And this is not some rare condition. The scale of this is staggering. When Frankl came to teach in America, he found that 60% of his own students said they felt this void. So this isn't some abstract problem. It's a real common feature of modern life.
So how does logotherapy actually deal with this stuff? Well, it has some really unique, almost counterintuitive tools. One is called paradoxical intention. It's about using humor to fight fear. So let's say you're terrified of public speaking because your hands shake. The therapist would encourage you to go up there and try to show the audience just how much you can possibly make them shake. You defy the fear, and in doing so, you break its power over you.
Another great technique is called de-reflection. You know how anxieties just get worse and worse the more we obsess over them? De-reflection is the cure for that. It works by guiding your focus away from yourself and your symptoms and onto something meaningful outside of you. A project, a person, a cause. The obsession literally just withers away from a lack of attention.
So here's a quick example in action. A patient is terrified about a job interview, totally fixated on his pounding heart. Before, his thought is, I'm going to fail. It's paralyzing. But after applying paradoxical intention, the script gets flipped. He's challenged to actively try to make his heart pound even faster. The humor in that one thought creates distance, and suddenly, he's back in control.
Now, Frankl's thinking went way beyond the therapist's office. He believed these insights had huge implications for how we structure our society and how we think about our most important values, especially the value of freedom.
Frankl argued that our modern obsession with freedom is totally incomplete. As he says here, freedom is really only half the story. It's in danger of becoming meaningless unless it's paired with its other half, responsibility. He even famously suggested that for the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast, we should build a Statue of Responsibility on the West Coast.
And that metaphor just clarifies it so perfectly. The Statue of Liberty represents freedom from things, from tyranny, from oppression. But a Statue of Responsibility would symbolize what we choose to be responsible for: our work, our loved ones, our community, our values. It's the other side of the coin.
All right, so as we wrap this up, there are really 5 key ideas to hold on to. First, your deepest motivation is a will to meaning. Second, you find that meaning through 3 paths: your work, your love, and your attitude towards suffering. Third, you always have the freedom to choose that attitude. Fourth, the antidote to a lot of anxiety can be humor and looking outward. And finally, freedom is only complete when it's balanced with responsibility.
And this brings us to Frankl's final, brilliant reversal of the whole thing. He said, we've got it all backwards. We shouldn't be walking around asking life, what is your meaning? Instead, we have to realize that it is life that is asking us the question. Every single day, every hour, life is posing a question to you.
And your answer isn't given in words, it's given in your actions, in your choices, in how you live your life. So I'll leave you with that thought. The question is being asked of you, right at this very moment. How are you going to answer?